Okay, well, welcome to the September edition of Caregiver Talking Tools. It's great to meet those of you who I have not met yet. And so I'll briefly kind of run through how we normally have been running these calls. They're meant to be very dialogue forward, very workshop-esque, rather than just kind of a lot of content. So as much as you're able to participate, we welcome that. And we kind of start with some introductions. So I'll tell you a little bit about who I am and my background, and then our topic today is what we're calling sustainable self-care. So I come to this community kind of having a different version, a different experience of caregiving. But as we know, many it doesn't necessarily matter exactly the doing behind caregiving. A lot of the energy and challenges and experiences are very similar. So, my son, I have four children. My son, my second oldest, is a multiple brain tumor survivor. So he survives with a handful of disabilities, and they run the gamut. So we have a lot of medical, physical disabilities, a lot of emotional dysregulation, visual impairment. Um, I always have to kind of do a body scan to like kind of pick them all up. But um, he's my gateway into the disability community, and so I in my career was a coach and thought, you know what, this is what this community needs in terms of a place to have a reflective space to really look at how we are going about this role of caregiving. How do we care for ourselves, and how do we essentially win at caregiving, which I know is kind of a weird context to have with caregiving, but meaning caring for our people in the way that we are committed to and is a representation of our love for them, but also how do we sustain ourselves to continue doing that day after day. So that's a little bit about who I am. And so with that, we won't necessarily, because this will be recorded for future use. So we won't necessarily do full introductions, but I would just welcome Julia and Jennifer to participate and ask any questions along the way. So we'll start with more of a discussion prompt, and that is we're talking about self-care. And there's a lot of, I don't know what we'll call it, emotional baggage, I think, when it comes to the topic of self-care in the special needs mom community. And I find that there's a lot of misconceptions about what self-care is and what it isn't. And I have my own opinions. And what I am really very committed to is moving past the initial resistance or challenge and learning to care for ourselves. So if you have parts of you that are like pushing back and like kind of being saying like, yeah, Kara, but you have to understand my situation. Give listen to that, right? That's kind of those are the breadcrumbs of the hurdles to work through to get to where you want to go. So we don't want to pretend that's not there. We actually do want to give it some space, but we don't want it to stop us. And so that's essentially what this conversation is about. So back to the discussion. I'd love to hear what comes up for you when you even think about self-care, and even maybe like what sustainable self-care, like what that makes your brain think of. So I'll welcome any feedback or any discussion. Thank you.
So
Go,
I think
Shelly.
one of my biggest hi, I'm Jen Patrick, and
Oh yeah, hi.
hi. So I think I do work with a therapist, especially since my daughter was diagnosed. I have a 3-year-old um, who is total care. So, and I do have two other children. So we are a family of five, including myself and my husband. And a lot of it is I've been working with my therapist trying to find joy. Like she always talks to me about like what brings me joy. Um, and it goes back to that self-care piece. But a lot of it is like sometimes it's like getting that shower for me, like because I've cared for everybody else and like I didn't have time to wash my hair or like blow dry my hair, and like blow drying my hair makes me feel good. And like that is like my self-care piece. Like it's finding those little things that make me feel put together because the rest of my family feels put together because I did those things. Like we just went on vacation and like of course like mom's packed everybody. I did everything. Mom forgot her bathing suit because I packed everybody else's bathing suit. Like that's self-care. Like
Yeah, that's so good. Well, I want to acknowledge you because actually it sounds like uh you're off to a great start. And I say start not because I know your experience, but because I know that we all are in a process. Like there's no point of
yeah,
arrival. And so I want to acknowledge you one for having a great therapist. It sounds like an incredible match for the support that you want. But also for you to have the awareness that some days it's the shower. I think that also is, to me, you have a mindset about caring for yourself, that there's an intention behind it, and you're actively looking for what that looks like. So already, not that we're like going for grades or gold stars, but already gold star. I just really want to highlight like job well done. So
thank you.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
Anybody
has
else?
been it's like this recently. Obviously, I've been working with my therapist for almost, well, city's 3. Like we her epilepsy started at 8, 9 months. So shortly after is when I started with her. But Sibby just recently started going to school. So I have set the alarm. Like I'm getting a shower now. Like it is happening. I have to. So like that is one thing. I don't want to take the whole thing.
That's great. Thank you for sharing. So Heather, you just joined the call. What we're talking about is kind of what comes up for you when you think about the topic of self-care, um, and like what sustainable self-care could look like, or kind of just what comes up for you thinking kind of your baseline. Where are you coming into this call? Who else will share?
I was just going to jump on and mention when I first thought of self-care, um, it had to be resting. Like
Uh-huh.
I had
Yeah.
to rest and on the couch, or I had to rest in a massage or, facial or things like that. It had to be like very deliberate. I had to like plan for it, things like that. But I have come to realize that sometimes my self-care is actually cleaning my house or
Hmm.
organizing a piece of my house that makes me feel good. And my dad was barking. But yeah, so I think, and I just wanted to acknowledge Jen too. Like it took me probably 5 years to figure out what you've already figured out. So kudos. Really proud of you. But yeah, sometimes it's actually doing something or like actually like setting up my to-do list or things like that. It's maybe getting organized.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. Anything to add, Shelley? You were going to unmute earlier.
Um, the topic of self-care, I'm getting really emotional thinking about it, how it took a near mental breakdown for me about 8 years ago to realize I needed to take a time out. And at the beginning, it was like picking up the kids from school was the most stressful time of my day. So I would sit, have a cup of tea, and then go pick them up. And same with bedtime. It would be like, okay, I'm going to sit, have a cup of tea, then I can tackle bedtime with the kids. And I remember my then husband being like, just put them to bed, then have, I was like, no, I am not going to be able to put them to bed if I can't just like
Hmm.
slow it
Hmm.
down. It has since progressed, but I remember how painful those days were of just not knowing when I could take a break and not, but then scheduling them. And they were only 10 minutes long, but it was hard.
Yeah. Yeah. I think um, sometimes I'm thinking actually of a week this summer that my son was at a sleepaway camp, so where he was, nursing care, all the things, and it was in the absence of him that I recognized the load. Because I think it's like we practice every day. We are conditioned to carrying the load that we carry. It's only sometimes in the absence of it that we recognize what that is. So, um, just kind of, Shelley, you make me think about like how much we're carrying all the time. And so it's stopping and acknowledging that, I think, could be a start of actually helping answer the question of what does it look like to care for oneself? So I want to briefly talk about um, the result. Like what is the result that we're playing for? How do we know that we are winning at self-care? It's kind of a, again, kind of a weird angle to take on it. It's I do business coaching as well, right? So it's easy to ask the question with an organization, how do we know we're winning? Okay, well, our revenue will go up, our client satisfaction will go up. This will be the experience that we're having. We have these, benchmark goals and a scorecard that we can look at. Sometimes I think we we are so unfamiliar with what it looks like to care for oneself and what it's like to feel cared for, that we don't even know the result we're playing for. And like Casey mentioned, like some of us come in with these conceptions, and I was same, Casey. I was like, okay, I was picturing self-care and like picturing myself on the couch with the magazine. And I was just like, I don't like magazines. So I don't, it's like, I'm not really sure. I don't even want that. And so if we ask the question, how do you know you're winning at self-care? What do you guys think?
I'm gonna jump in and kind of tag on what Jen was saying earlier is like, I feel good. You know, we're not right now, honey. Come back after recess, okay? Why? Because I'm busy on a meeting. Sorry. Just give me a minute.
Shelley volunteers annually at their school book club, or
Uh-huh.
not book club, what's it called?
Book
Book
fair?
fair. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah. So she's been there all week, but she gets like 40 minutes for a lunch. So she wanted to jump on. But it sounds like kids are wanting books, regardless of it being lunch.
Well, that's a win, right?
Right, right. But
Good.
we
So
can
she
always
was
check.
saying feel good. What are your thoughts, Casey, on like how do you know you're winning at self-care?
I'm less angry or snippy,
Like
right? Like I lash out less.
Yeah.
that's such a good point. Julia, were you going to jump on there?
Yep, I was gonna say like I'm more managed to sorry, to like keep control of my emotions. Like I'm
Mhm.
getting angry less, and I mean my child's wild. Like oh my god, she's sitting right here. Like I don't hide anything from her honestly because that's just the kind of family we are, you know.
Mhm.
So my daughter's 5. She's autistic, ADHD. She can tell you off, but also a lot of times just won't talk.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like when I'm not lashing out at Magnolia as much, getting upset at her, my husband, whatever, and I'm more able to like not be so overstimulated because I have SCNA
Mhm.
as well. She maternally inherited, so
Mhm.
it's hard, like having it and then having to care for a child, in general,
Yeah.
just a child having SCNA
Yeah.
and other, all these things that stem from it. So
Mhm. Yeah.
yeah, being able to just basically not lash out and being able to control my
Mhm.
emotions.
Mhm.
And to answer your question earlier, I was trying, but Magnolia was having a moment.
Yeah, go
uh,
ahead.
my when I first think of self care, I think of anything that does not involve taking care of the house or taking care of her or the dog or this,
Uh-huh.
like
Uh-huh. The
basically
absence
anything not
of
taking care of everyone else.
uh-huh. Yeah, great. Yeah, it's taking a break from that. And Jennifer, were you going to add something?
Yeah, I think a lot of times for me though, like I don't realize that I'm winning until like weeks down the road and I reflect back. Like I will silently look back and I'm like, oh yeah, like we are in a season of life where things like I do like I am winning. Like
Mhm. Mhm.
and it takes me a little bit to realize that. Like it's not instant gratification all the time. I may not, yes, I'm enjoying my Target or my cup of coffee. Like, yes, in the moment it might be bringing me joy, but when I reflect back on it, I'm like, oh, I really do enjoy those things. Like, um, So I do think like reflecting back is when you realize that you're winning on those type of things.
Yeah, that's a really great point. It reminded me of an analogy I use or a picture I use a lot to describe or a way to look at self-care because a lot of us will say, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to take on more for self-care and we'll do something or we'll try something and we're like, okay, like we don't really necessarily notice an impact. Um, until like you said, Jen, like until looking back, you're like, oh, actually, like, oh, I did that thing every day. And actually, wow, I feel better. Like I've handled that better. And so oftentimes I don't know, I see them like Japanese gardens. There's like a bamboo hollow stick. And it's like basically it's arranged in such a way where there's a drip of water going over and over. Or like, they actually have these at water parks too, right? Where it's like water pouring into a bucket that's just off center enough to where when it gets full enough, it will tip over.
Mhm.
And so I think that in a positive way, I feel like this is like, um, you know, drops in your little fountain that you're just putting in and you're putting in and maybe don't notice a huge effect, but then essentially there's going to be a tipping point in which you have a noticeable positive impact from what you have been doing, not doing, taking on. Um, and so I think that's a great thing to point out, Jennifer, is that you're like, oh, actually, I don't notice it in the moment, but I can look back and see the experience that I am having that's different. So I want to also point out something that I think is helpful to think about because we are going to look at, so I made a cute little menu, like a restaurant menu for you guys of different self-care items. And it's not comprehensive because I couldn't fit it all, but I thought I had fun with it. So I'll share that with you guys. But um, we're going to look at different kind of buckets of self-care, things that can fall under the umbrella of self-care. But one thing I want to put in there, and I think Jennifer, actually, you've already demonstrated this so well, is that self-care is not always doing something or not doing something. Self-care, actually, I think it's about caring for oneself. And so for Jennifer, if you don't mind me using as the example again, it's like you were in pursuit of joy. So that was that was the conversation that you were having with yourself. How and where can I find joy? And so you put the intention in of blow drying your hair. Like that is something. So that is a doing something. But the part that I really want to emphasize that is self-care is the part where you were thinking about it and you were looking for opportunities that worked. You were not stuck in the conversation of I can't, because you have a lot of reasons why you couldn't do that, right? You were
Mhm.
looking at it through the lens of how can I? How can I wash my hair and blow dry my hair? How can I find joy? And that is the fundamental shift that makes the biggest difference in the results of what we're playing for, of feeling good, of having less anger, less explosiveness. And so I like to and again, kind of building what Casey said, it's like when we think about self-care is rest, some of us are like, I don't even want rest. I just want to not be doing the caregiving items like Julia mentioned. Um, and I think that also when we have very activated nervous systems, the idea of resting actually may be so far out of what's accessible to us from a nervous system standpoint that we may never actually, I don't want to say it that way, get expecting ourselves to get from very, very heightened nervous system to a rest state all in one moment. Like I'm going to go sit on the couch and I'm going to rest. It's asking a lot of ourselves. And so it's all the things that we can take on in between that make a big difference. So, any comment on anything I said before we kind of go over to look at the list? Okay. Um, Let me see, Casey, if I can share my last time I think it didn't work. And we should have talked about it ahead of time. Okay, let's do a little copy and let's do a paste into the chat. It's not working. I'm going to email it to you, Casey, because last time Shelly rescued me, I think.
Sounds good.
Um, so this is, and this by no means is critical for the call, but I thought it would be fun for you guys to have afterwards as a little like, it's designed to be printed. And the idea of having this menu is, hold on, I can't multitask. I'm not like Casey. I can't multitask, and I've learned to accept it. It's like I look at work I've done when I'm trying to multitask, and I'm like, it looks like a drunk person was doing that work. Like, it's not a good idea.
That's okay. Now I can't get into my email because
I
apparently I
tried to
forgot
make
my
coffee
word.
when I was talking to my friend the other day, and I ground the beans without putting the thing underneath. I was like, this is,
Oh,
we got to focus, Kara. Okay. Um, Menu. Okay. The reason I made this menu is because um, I think it's great. Well, like a menu, right? Sometimes we're like really hungry, want a big meal. Sometimes we have a whole hour to sit down and we like want to take on something big. And sometimes we're like, we want to drink. We just want to drink. That's all we want. And so there's different aspects and just different kind of buckets that may or may not fit. But having something to go to that can kind of be part of the conversation in terms of what maybe new thing can you take on, because sometimes you're not going to want to take on a new thing because new is hard for our brains, and so sometimes you're going to want to do something that you've done over and over again that maybe you just haven't thought about. So having a menu to kind of go back to, I think, can be a great way to kind of when you find yourself wanting to do something, you can go brainstorm with yourself, or look it up on ChatGPT. But the idea behind my little thing is like print it out and see if you try something new or take on something new. If I would have gotten a little bit more fancy, I would have put like the time associated to it, but I just left like the numbers that were in the menu, like template that I used. Okay. For the most part. All right. So let's look at different buckets. We have, we're going to start with that mental and emotional energy. And this one starts with what I'm calling a micropause, where it really just is as simple as taking several deep breaths. And this, we all hear about breathing. And I don't know about you, but I'm like, yeah. Give me something more power packed. Like I want to do something that like really is going to make a difference. And I'm like, breathing? Really? Are you sharing, Casey?
attempting. Yes.
Attempting. I'm like,
There we
oh,
go.
distraction. Okay. There's my cute menu. Isn't it cute?
It is cute.
Um, so if there's any typos, it's part of my brand. We all know that. Well, we're gonna learn that. I actually don't think there's a lot of typos, but okay, again, focus. Micropauses. Okay, breathing. It works because it is one of the only ways that we can consciously tell our subconscious that we're okay. And many of us, because of the lifestyle that we have, where we are parenting people that have critical medical needs as part of their profile, um, our body's smart, and it's like something's not okay. We're in danger here. We are needing to be on high alert all the time. So it becomes very, very hard to shift out of that fight or flight and into a grounded state where your nervous system's like, yeah, we're good to go. So breathing is the way, I shouldn't say it because there are other ways, one of the most effective, short, and impactful ways to do that. So micropause. So this can be after you've made it through a challenging event, maybe a series of seizures, um, maybe right before your shower, right as you're like kind of in this recovery process, maybe before you're going into something. Obviously, you guys have, can bring it anywhere. And a breath there's many different breaths to take, but one I like to teach because it's very simple. It's called a physiological sigh. And so basically, it's a full breath in, and then so it's a double inhale. So a full breath in, and then you just get a little bit more air. I'll demonstrate it in a second. Then you get a little bit more air in, and then you're going to do a long, slow exhale. So, and in through the nose, out through the mouth. And do you guys know your mouth is not made for breathing? Who knew? I read an entire book about it. It's your nose. You're supposed to breathe with your nose. Total tangent. Okay. So let's all do this together. You do the best you can. There's no wrong way to do it. I'll be doing it, but so it'll be full breath in, double inhale, and then long exhale. 1, 2, 3, go. Let's do one more. Okay. Doesn't that feel good? And it's what's in what we don't recognize is when we're doing our normal, just like breathing like we were, like we're not expanding our lungs to the fullest. And so your little ciliary don't get stretched out. And so that double inhale kind of allows actual more air to get into your lungs, kind of puffs them back up again. And then the exhale is when your body's like, okay, everything's okay. That's why we want to make sure we have a long exhale. Okay. Um, Another one in the mental and emotional category is just a little bit of a mindset of, we'll call it good enough. And this one's actually not on the menu, but really noticing when you're perhaps kind of stuck in the have to have it this way mindset, or some people identify with being perfectionists. It has to be high, it has to be this, or it's not worth doing it at all. I like to teach even business clients like sometimes B minus work is the way to go. That nobody else is going to detect the difference between your B minus work and A plus work. And it's just a great opportunity to check in terms of maybe if you're like, if there's, and actually I remind myself this all the time is how can you let this be easy? It's not going to work for everything in your life, right? So there's some area of like maybe if it's some critical, like you might not choose the good enough mindset for medication management. That may not be where you turn this one on, but maybe it's for making your bed. Okay, good enough. It looks a little sloppy, but it's fine. So there's just opportunities I think where we can kind of let go a little bit of the load that we hold. And this one is on the menu, the boundary setting. So much easier said than done. And so some of us have an automatic yes. And this is a reminder that this actually takes very little time. It's actually simply in a conversation. It's just saying, not right now. I can't take that on right now. It could be even to a doctor. I'm thinking right now we're doing some bladder training, 3 to 6 month project that requires a high level of management on my part. And I'm like, oh, okay. I don't think I'm going to do this in this particular case, but it is a good example to actually say, not right now. Like we're not going to take that on right now during this season. We're going to wait 2 months because it's not a time critical issue. But just recognizing that we do have bandwidths and we will have to manage those things, and that can kind of protect the mental and emotional energy that we have. So this next little category is kind of starting with the base. It's like a lot of times when clients come to me, whether it be caregiving moms or in the business setting, if they're finding themselves in a particularly troubled state, a lot of times we check in for well-being, really, which is a way of saying our physical well-being. So it's looking at the basics: hydration, movement, sleep, nutrition. Like, and again, we all know exactly what we're supposed to be doing in these areas. And a lot of times, so sleep is a great one here, right? A lot of times we're very intellectually aware of what we're supposed to be doing. And we have some true barriers in terms of what it looks like to both caregive and get the sleep that we need. So I think this is where it's being in pursuit of the, how can I get one night of sleep better? Is it trading off with a partner? Is it bringing in respite for one night? I don't know what it is, right? Like there's no one answer, but it's being in that conversation with yourself of how can I get more of what I need in this area? So that's the physical, and I'm not going to go into detail because I think you all know what it is in terms of what we're supposed to be doing. This menu is designed to give you an aspect of like, hey, I'm going to just this week focus on hydration. Of like, you know what I love is these liquid IVs. I have this jar, and this liquid IV, I'm addicted to it, and I can't stop drinking it. It's really expensive, but I love it. Okay. So right, so could be hydration and really focusing on that aspect of caregiving. It could be any number one of those areas. So let's see, on my menu, if you go down to the add-ons, I think I have it in there. Um, or I had to kind of work, yeah. Yeah, this is kind of the add-ons are two different areas, micro help, right? So instead of asking like, you know, for someone to take your child for 3 years, just kidding. Um, you could say, hey, and you know, this is going to be, you'll really have to put it through the lens of what would work in your life, right? So maybe it's asking a neighbor to like pick up milk on the way home. Maybe it's asking for a carpooling buddy. Maybe it's asking your husband, to help with something. There's no one thing here, but it's really looking for ways like, okay, how can I get a little bit more help or support? So that's one area to look. Connection burst. So we often don't think about connection in service of self-care, but I think that actually, if we're looking through the lens of caring for oneself, having a place to connect with other people who really deeply understand you can be hugely supportive, which then, you know, is going to result in a more cared for you. So finding little ways to do that. Okay, back to replenishing inner reserves. So this is I think where the gold star lands for Jen, and it's joy jolts. Do you like that? Chat, help me come up with that. Um so it's these small little daily pleasures, and actually Shelley mentioned this too, right? Where I love this one where it's like, okay, you might be doing the same things that you're going to be doing anyhow, but just putting on some music that you enjoy or that's calming or energizing or whatever the thing is that you are after in that moment can actually just give you that little bit of more experience of what you want. Um, so I love that example of just like music, or, you know, having a mug of tea, 5 minutes in the sun. Like these ones are little, but actually super powerful. So gratitude spotting. So this one, this is an interesting one because I think that there's so many, well, so gratitude, right? So we all hear about gratitude and sometimes like enough about gratitude because I think we can have some resistance. I can, because we're like, but I'm not thankful for this part of my life. Like, but I don't want it to be this way. So how can I be grateful? And that's where I think a lot of us get stuck. I know I did for many years. And so that's why when I talk about gratitude, it is not discounting or pretending like you're grateful for the things that are truly um, tragic in our lives, but it is finding, I loved a doggy. That's self-care. Well done, Casey. Um, um, you know, it's finding the ways to relate to it in which you can have gratitude. And I'll use an example that actually it's coming. So my son has a body that carries a lot of weight, and it is not some and his body. It's very hard for him to live in his body, and he has a teacher that is real big into affirmations. Now, I'm a life coach. I'm big on positive self-talk, but I am not big on affirmations for the reason that many people think that they need to lie to themselves, and that is not effective. So the example I'll give for that is she was like, okay, repeat after me. I love my body. And so he like willingly repeats after her, I love my body. But I'm listening to this example she gave me yesterday of how she's helping him with affirmations, um, cringing because I'm like, but he doesn't love his body. And I'm not going to tell him he should love his body. And so, where I'm going to help him is I'm going to help him find where he is grateful for his body. Okay, my heart still works. My heart works. My heart is keeping me alive. I can be grateful for my heart. I'm not going to tell him that he should be grateful for the parts of his bodies that are not working. That feels cruel, in my opinion. Um, but I think it's finding the parts that we are genuinely and truly grateful for that then has the positive shift in our life. So that's, I think, where we can, the word, I think it's well phrased here, gratitude spotting, finding what we are grateful for, and also acknowledging what we are not. So I'm going to read Heather's comment. I kind of have to do this with my husband when I'm feeling like I'm doing more than him. I usually take a few seconds to think about what he has done. Oh, brilliant. Okay. I usually take a few seconds to think about what he has done to help me, and then it usually takes away that resentment from me. Well done, Heather. Because I mean, I'm guilty of this too. We start to get a little, we got get a little narrative going in our heads about these husbands and these partners, and especially for the ones at home doing the bulk of the caregiving. Because I'm like, I want a job where I get to just go like every day. Like that sounds like a true treat. So we start to spin a little bit of narrative, and what that builds is resentment. And we truly then become blind to all the things that they are doing. In this case, we're talking about our caregiver, if we have one. And I think that's so great for you, Heather, to be able to recognize that and to pause and to reorient yourself to the gratitude for what he is doing. Now, it doesn't mean that we don't get to have a conversation with said husband and say, hey, I'm starting to feel like this is getting really heavy. What would you think about taking this on or helping me with this or whatever, right? Kind
Yeah,
of
I
going
was
back to
gonna
the micro
say
help.
it
Go
usually
ahead,
kind
Heather.
of turns into like the asking for micro help. I'm like, okay, I'm really not mad at him for like everything. I just need help with this one thing and I'm not asking for it. So
Well done. Well done. Okay. Let's see. I think that the last couple things I'll mention is um the um habit stacking. So have you guys heard of this term, habit stacking? Um, I think I might have heard about it in the James Clear book. I think maybe initially. So he has a really great book. What is it called? Habits? Atomic Habits. It's a great book. Um, and it's just simple things like, so the examples is like stretching while your coffee brews. So it's taking something that you're already doing regularly, like brushing your teeth, and it's adding something. So it's giving a cue to your brain. Hey, I'm going to think about things I'm grateful for every time I brush my teeth. So like, it's not like, adding a bunch of to-dos separately on your list that then just feels harder, which we do not need as caregivers. But it's kind of taking what you're already doing and making it work, in a way that's even more supportive for you. And you can do this in a variety of different ways for habit stacking, but that's just kind of a couple ideas. Seasonal. So sometimes during different seasons, we're going to have different seasons of self care. If you were in an inpatient situation, self care is going to look very, very different than if we are post inpatient care and or in a season where we're experiencing better health. So recognizing there's going to be seasonalities to this, and so we have to adjust, just like we adjust our outerwear, our clothing seasonally. We'll need to adjust how we're supporting ourselves. And the last thing I have in the little menu here is this permission to pivot and recognizing that kind of mentioned this earlier is like this week we might focus on sleep and tomorrow it might be a walk. The idea here is not to add all of this in this all or nothing kind of way, but just to be in pursuit of caring for ourselves. So that is what we have. And so the conversation I would invite us to is, um, if it's on the menu, great. Or if something else has come into your mind that you're like, oh, I'm kind of intrigued or excited about making this little shift, or I have this new idea as a result of this conversation. I'd love to hear it. But essentially, the invitation is to um, identify one thing from this conversation in service of self-care that you want to go implement in your everyday life. So, Jennifer, it looks like you're off mute.
It's interesting, like going back to I think 2 points that you were just talking about, and I don't want to get stuck, but like talking about shifting, especially when my daughter goes inpatient, and like when like my joy, like when I'm seeking things of joy, like it may not be when we're inpatient that I can blow dry my hair, but I know that when I'm inpatient, what I go for is, oh, what, like I'm not going to order off the hospital menu. So like it's what am I going to DoorDash, or I'm going to go and walk and get my Starbucks to get me out of the hospital. Like those are the things that are going to bring me joy. But I also know that like my mental health, I always say like everybody's like, well, how are you like I guess my self-care always goes around like my daughter, how she's doing during that
Yeah.
time. So like right now, like I'm always saying, like my daughter's in a really good place right now. So we're riding the high. And I know this high is not going to be good forever. But like when you opened this session, I know it's not like we need to not be focused around that, but like that, it just is, it's hard to get out of that frame of that mindset. Um, so yeah,
Let
like
me ask you,
it's that pivoting point.
can I ask you a clarifying question? When you say my self-care is um, dependent on how your daughter's doing, do you mean to say that how you feel depends on how your daughter's doing? Is that, uh,
I guess because like a lot of times we will be inpatient. Like if she's in a really bad spot, we will be inpatient. So a lot of like what I would be able to do at home, like
you
I'm
can't
kind of blow
do?
dry. Yeah,
I see.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that I think is the seasonal aspect, right?
Okay.
And so I think it's very understandable for your, like you said, like you can't shower. So that's not going to be there, but
Yeah.
it's finding, and I think also, I'm thinking about these seasons that we find ourselves in. And I think sometimes it's through the lens of actually checking in and seeing what you need that can be so helpful. Because
Yeah.
while I know intellectually that exercise is good for me, sometimes I'm not going to ask myself to go out in the garage and lift weights because if I look at the overarching experience, it's just asking myself to give more than I have to give in that moment. Now, it doesn't mean I'm going to stop my pursuit of having strong muscles as a woman of perimenopausal age, but I give myself permission to not do it now and to not feel guilty about it. Not perfectly, by the way, but that is what I try to practice. So I think for you, Jennifer, same thing, right? Where it's like recognizing, okay, in this season, in this moment, this day, this hour, what does it look like to care for myself, to also to seek joy,
Yeah.
um, and sometimes this is not going to be a popular, and sometimes physical pleasure can be what we reach for. Sometimes it's going to be like a sweet treat. And I get that that's not, if that's the answer every day, it might lead to some health issues. But it's recognizing the seasonality of it and giving ourselves permission, like, okay, this is what I'm doing today. And I won't choose it every day, but I'm going to choose that today and I'm going to love it. Hopefully that makes sense. Does that help at all
Yeah.
kind of with what you were bringing up, Jennifer?
Yeah.
Awesome. Casey said, business not as usual, mindset when still is not doing well. or if we're in the hospitals, help me mentally. Yeah. So I'll just briefly say what this is. So business not as usual is actually a declaration of saying, this is not a normal time. This is a business not as usual time. So I live in the state of California. We have a lot of wildfires. And every state has a mechanism of this. They declare a state of emergency. And what that does is it frees up funds. It changes the way that the government can make decisions and maybe other things I don't even know about. But it's a great example and parallel to say, oh, okay, so when we go inpatient, similar thing. I free up some funds and say, we're buying food. I'm not making food. Or maybe the choice is we're asking for more support from our community. It again, there's no one way to do this, but it's giving yourself permission to operate in a business not as usual kind of way. And and it kind of makes space for different seasons. Like right now, we had a house fire. It's all it's all good. Turns out my son likes to play with matches. Um, yeah, so we're recovering from that. He's very able. Aren't we celebrating all the things that we can do? So right now our house is not in a business as usual state. So I'm not expecting myself to operate with the way that my house normally is. So that's a great example of a business not as usual kind of way. Heather, were you going to make another comment?
No, I didn't have
Okay.
anything. Well, I
No,
was going to say earlier, I was just going to tell Jennifer, like, I do relate to you specifically. Like, I always say that my mental health is like directly related to my son's like physical health and how he's doing. So, you know, if he's in a good place, I'm in a good place. And something else I notice is like, honestly, being, of course, I don't want to be inpatient, but like sometimes whenever you're inpatient, like it's like you're working so hard at home to avoid that like honestly the stress level is lower when they're in the hospital, and so you're like, oh, okay, I will go treat myself. But like that, when they start going downhill or whatever, and like that the time when you're working so hard to keep them from that crisis point, that's whenever I sometimes probably struggle with the most of this. You know,
yeah.
that's whenever I'm staying up late, stressing and not sleeping and doing all of that. So it's like that time period. But once he actually like, you know, we have to make the decision to like put him in the hospital, then I'm like, it's almost weirdly like a like a thing is like lifted off your shoulders. You're like, okay, well, we're here now.
Yeah, that is a great point. And actually, I'll mention another. Sorry, I have stacks of stuff behind me. I have to clean my office. Um, I'll mention a book that I got to contribute to, and it is a faith-based book, but it's called The Courage to Raise, The Heart of Parenting a Child with Special Needs. And the chapter that I wrote in this, essentially, I talk about my chapter's called Winning the Unwinnable Game, a coach's strategy for special needs moms. And I talk about the pregame, postgame, and game time. Game time essentially is business not as usual. It could be a moment where someone's having a behavioral event. But essentially, I have post-game recovery and pre-game. Post-game recovery is like kind of when we get out of that. So actually what's interesting, Heather, is like your post-game recovery may be when you go inpatient. As in that game time for you when it gets so intense and you're really, really in it is that trying to prevent that hospitalization. And so when you finally, lean into the hospitalization, you have more support magically, not magically, but instantly. And so that actually might be where you take on a lot in terms of recovery for sleep, for all the different things that you decided not to do or couldn't do. But splitting it up in these kind of categories or mindsets, recognizing that so post game recovery is when it's like we're literally um, not literally licking our wounds, as in like if you think about we watch Quarterback. Do you guys watch that show? they're doing all the things to recover in terms of getting massages. And I mean, it's pretty great going to the chiropractor and icing and actually mending injuries. It is dealing with the impacts of what you just went through. Pre-game is when we're saying, okay, I know I'm going to go into game time again. I know I'm going to get to the season where my child has very intense needs, like for you, that trying to avoid hospitalization time. What do I need to do during that time to do it better in terms of ways that I could care for my child better, but also ways I can care for myself better? So maybe it's like, okay, I know I need to have a reserve of meals for when we get into that intense season so I can pull from them to ease that load for me during that time. It's it's when we have our prefrontal cortex available to us to do this higher level of thinking that we can kind of strategize on how we can do it better. And expecting ourselves to do that in the moment of what I'm calling game time, or we could call it crisis time, would be a pretty tall order for any one of our brains. So, anyhow, you guys are welcome to pick that up as a resource for it. It's like at the full chapter. But I think that can be really helpful to kind of split it up into like different seasons, even as of that, in terms of what we take on and what we don't take on. Let's see. Casey says, I feel like we're all going into pregame as cold and flu season approaches. Mm-hmm. Yeah. For me, I feel like going into summer is going into game time, and I'm still recovering. Although doing pretty good. Any other comments? Well, you do not have to share, firstly, but I would invite you either to share out loud or in the chat if you want to share on one thing that you are making a declaration of that you want to focus on. So, what comes to your mind when you think about if you're going to be putting some more drips in that fountain? What comes to your mind that you want to put a little bit more attention to?
So something that me and my counselor have talked about, and I haven't done it yet, so I'm going to do it right after this call since I'm in this mindset, is I'm making a list of all the things that I am responsible for. And in that list, I'm going to like identify things of like somebody else can do this. Like this is not a only Casey job. There are certain things on that list that will absolutely be only Casey. But on the things that I'm like, okay, I don't have to manage this. This can be managed by someone else, whether it's in my family or a reach outside, whatever. So I'm gonna write down my list of all the things I do and then identify the micro help spots.
Awesome. Great one. Anybody else?
Um, I need to prepare for bad days in advance, food wise for me mostly, because I
Mhm.
get, well, one of my goals right now is healthy eating and weight loss. You can't do that if you're stressed out and hop into McDonald's. And I do have snacks ready, which I've been really good with my brain picking them. But when it comes to dinner time for the family, I don't have that prepared. I love cooking. I don't mind cooking, but I'm honestly sick to death of deciding what we're going to eat for the rest of our lives.
I know. I'm with you
And
on that
that
one.
overwhelms me so much that I shut down and I just want somebody to say, I want this. And I used to be really good at meal planning and or making food in advance, at least even something just to throw in the crock pot. And I haven't been doing it. And I think that would take so much of a load off if I could take 10 minutes one day and of the week and just even just write down the things we're having for dinner would be easy.
Yeah, or try different things. Recently, I've been trying. I just get lunches delivered. Factor. I mean, it's like there's like a million different companies targeting moms like me, people like me that want
Yeah.
to eat healthier and are a little bit.
We do, I do HelloFresh when I'm
Yeah.
done. And then at
Yeah.
least the kids don't mind helping if everything's in that one bag. They
Right. So
can't
it's like
make dinner
looking
if
at
it's not
seasons.
in that bag. Yeah,
They can't make dinner.
they can't.
Um, Awesome. Anybody else as we wrap up? All right. Well, that's a great place to wrap. Thank you guys so much for being here, for participating in the conversation, and I hope you yeah, are just a little bit more oriented to the ultimate like shift of how can I um care for myself. And so with that, we'll see you guys next month.
Sounds great. Thank you, Kara. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. All right. Great to see you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.